It all started on a quiet afternoon in a small neighborhood where everyone knew each other by name. The kind of place where people exchanged smiles in the morning and waved from across the street. Among them was Anya, calm, soft-spoken, and always seen in simple clothes with a gentle smile on her face. No one ever really paid much attention to her. She wasn't flashy, didn't speak loudly, and never drew unnecessary attention to herself. To most, she was just the quiet girl who worked at the bookstore down the lane. But what no one knew was that behind those peaceful eyes and quiet nature was someone who had spent years mastering an art most would never guess: karate. It wasn't something she bragged about. In fact, she hadn't used her skills in years, not since she moved to this new town to escape a past she rarely talked about. She preferred the calm, the ordinary, the safety of being overlooked. Everything changed the day a group of strangers showed up in town. Loud, arrogant, and full of themselves, they made a habit of picking on those they thought were weak. And Anya. To them, she was the easiest target. They laughed at her plain clothes, mocked her soft voice, and called her names she didn't deserve. She didn't fight back, at least not at first. The townspeople watched silently, unsure of how to respond, some even thinking she should just ignore them and move on. But Anya wasn't someone who stayed silent forever. There's a limit to patience, even for someone as calm as her. The moment they crossed the line, when they cornered her one evening, laughing as if it was all just a game, something shifted. The bookstore girl, the quiet neighbor, the one everyone underestimated, suddenly wasn't so quiet anymore. What happened next? Let's just say, they never saw it coming. Years before Anya ever stepped foot in this town, her life was anything but quiet. She had grown up in a big city, raised by a father who believed discipline was the strongest shield a person could carry. He was a respected karate instructor, and from the age of 7, Anya trained alongside students twice her size. While other kids played after school, she practiced forms, strikes, and footwork until her muscles ached and her knuckles toughened. It wasn't easy, but it shaped her, not into someone aggressive, but into someone who knew how to protect herself. Without ever needing to raise her voice, she kept her training a secret in the new town. She had left that old life behind after something happened, something she didn't like to talk about. People who got close enough noticed the faint scars on her wrists, or the way she always scanned her surroundings. But no one dared ask. And Anya never offered more than a polite smile. So when the group of men started hanging around the marketplace, loitering near the bus stop, making rude remarks, Anya remained calm. She told herself it was just a phase, that they'd move on. But the whispers began. Stories of stolen phones, people being followed late at night, a shopkeeper finding his door broken in. Still, no one did anything. Fear had a way of spreading, quietly. The day they targeted Anya wasn't the first time they had picked someone, but it was the first time they had gone too far. She was walking home from work, the sky just turning orange, when she heard footsteps behind her. Laughter followed. They didn't hide their intentions. One of them even called out to her, mocking her walk, pretending to stumble like she did. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look back. But she stopped. Slowly, she turned to face them. Not with fear, but with a strange, steady calm that made them hesitate for a second. And in that quiet moment, the street suddenly felt colder, the tension thicker, because without saying a word, Anya had just changed everything. What was she about to do? You're not ready for this part. Anya's sudden stillness caught them off guard. It wasn't what they expected. One of the men, tall, loud, the kind who always tried to impress the others, took a step closer, smirking like it was all just a joke. "What, bookstore girl's gonna cry now?" he said, loud enough for the others to laugh. But the laughter was a bit thinner this time. Something about her eyes, calm, Focused. Didn't sit right. She didn't say a word. Just stood there with her hands relaxed at her sides. The kind of stillness that comes from control, not fear. The moment dragged, and even the street sounds seemed to fade. A few people peeked out from nearby shops, sensing something was wrong. But no one stepped in. Not yet. They were used to staying out of trouble. Used to believing Anya wouldn't fight back. Among the crowd watching from the shadows was Mr. Mara, who ran the tea stall. He had always noticed Anya, the way she moved so carefully, like someone trained. His younger brother had once been a martial arts coach before opening the shop with him. Mr. Mara had seen that same kind of balance in Anya's walk, that quiet readiness. Now, watching the way she faced the men, he realized he might have been right all along. Across the street, a teenage girl named Rhea gripped her bag tighter. She had been followed by the same group just a few nights earlier, but hadn't told anyone. Fear had kept her quiet. Now she watched Anya, wondering how someone so quiet could look so unshaken. The leader of the group, sensing things weren't going his way, motioned for the others to circle around. They laughed again, louder this time, trying to bring back their confidence. But their eyes kept flicking to Anya's face, as if trying to figure her out. One of them reached toward her arm, maybe just to scare her. That's when she shifted. Her stance, barely a movement, just a slight change in weight and position. But to someone who understood fighting, it was clear. She was ready. And still, she hadn't said a word. The man's hand hovered too close, his grin wide, but shaky now, like he was forcing it. Anya didn't move, not yet. She just looked at him, steady and quiet, as if measuring something he couldn't see. The others began to close in, forming a loose half-circle around her. To any outsider, it might have looked like a group of friends playing around. But the tension was real, thick like the heavy evening air just before a storm breaks. Mr. Mara had stepped out from behind his stall, a towel still in his hand, heart racing. He wanted to shout, to stop what was about to happen. But something held him back. Not fear, faith. He didn't know how he knew, but deep down, he trusted Anya could handle it. She wasn't cornered. She had chosen to stand there. Rhea, still watching from behind a rickshaw, held her breath. Every instinct told her to run, to hide. But her feet wouldn't move. Her chest tightened with something that felt like both fear and hope. Hope that this time, someone would show them they couldn't keep doing this to people. That someone, maybe, was Anya. The men kept talking, their voices louder now, masks of confidence slowly slipping. One of them muttered, "What's wrong with her? Why isn't she scared?" Another laughed nervously. The leader scowled. "Enough of this," he said, stepping forward and reaching out, too fast, too close. That's when Anya's body moved. Not wildly. Not with panic. Just fast. Sharp and precise like a spark snapping in the air. She didn't strike him. Not yet. But her foot slid back, one arm lifted, her fingers curling just enough to shift into a stance no one recognized. Unless they knew. The group froze. The leader stopped mid-step, his eyes locked on hers. And for the first time since they'd started, not a single one of them spoke. There was no laughter now, no taunts, just a silence that buzzed with uncertainty and rising fear. The small crowd that had gathered didn't blink. No one moved, because everyone could feel it. Something was about to happen, and once it did, nothing would be the same again. Just when it felt like everything was about to erupt, the unexpected happened. A sharp voice cut through the heavy silence, not from Anya or the group, but from behind the crowd. "Anya!" Everyone turned. A man was pushing through, older, tall with a familiar face hardened by time. His voice carried both anger and urgency. Anya's expression shifted slightly, her stance faltering for a second. Not fear. recognition. It was her old karate mentor, Sensei Rajan. No one knew him here, but Anya did. She hadn't seen him in years, not since she'd left the dojo and disappeared without a word. And now, here he was, in the middle of this street, in this quiet town, at the exact moment everything was about to explode. The group of men glanced at each other, confused. The crowd murmured, "Who was this man?" Sensei Rajan looked straight at her. "You were taught to use your strength for protection, not for proving a point," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Is this really the time you want to show them who you are?" Anya's jaw clenched. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about defending herself, about ending something that had gone on too long. Still, his words hung in the air, heavier than before. The leader of the group, sensing the shift, suddenly grew bold again. He laughed, pointing at Rajan. "What is this? Some kind of family drama now?" But Rajan didn't even look at him. He walked slowly to Anya, stopping just out of reach. "You left because you wanted peace. You've trained your whole life for moments like this, not to fight, but to choose when not to." The tension cracked. Anya's mind raced. Everyone watching was waiting for her next move, expecting a fight, a sudden kick, something dramatic. But this new twist stirred a deeper conflict, because now it wasn't just about defending herself. It was about her past, her values, and whether she could walk away without betraying who she'd become. The group of men, still unsure of what they were really facing, took another step forward. Anya lowered her gaze for half a second, and then slowly lifted it again. And just like that, the pressure rose even higher. Anya looked at Sensei Rajan, her eyes full of questions and memories. His presence stirred something deep. Not just her training, but the quiet reason she had walked away from it all. She had wanted to start fresh, to live without violence, to believe the world could be kind if you met it with kindness. But now, cornered in the street with people watching, with fear clinging to every breath around her, she knew some things needed more than silence. She turned back toward the group. The leader smirked again, thinking the moment had passed. "So," he said, starting to move in again. But he moved too fast, too sure of himself. That was his mistake. In one smooth motion, Anya stepped forward. Her movements were lightning fast, not wild or angry, just sharp, controlled and focused. One fluid spin and her legs swept across with perfect balance, knocking the lead man off his feet before he even realized what had happened. The others jumped back, startled. A second guy lunged toward her, but she sidestepped and lightly tapped his chest with a palm strike that sent him stumbling back, air knocked from his lungs. She didn't hurt them, just reminded them without question who she really was. Gasps echoed through the street. People who had watched in silence now stepped closer, eyes wide. Even Mr. Mara let out a quiet, "Unbelievable." The rest of the group hesitated, no longer sure of their strength in numbers. Anya stood calm, breathing steady. "Leave," she said simply, "and don't come back." No threats, no raised voice, just truth. And they left, not all at once, but with that awkward, embarrassed shuffle of people who realized they'd just lost more than a fight. The leader glanced back once, his expression unreadable, then disappeared down the alley. Everyone slowly relaxed. Sensei Rajan gave her a quiet nod, full of pride, but before he could speak, something unexpected happened. From behind the crowd, a woman stepped forward, tall, sharp eyes, and a quiet confidence of her own. "I've been looking for you," she said to Anya. Anya blinked. "Do I know you?" The woman smiled faintly. "Not yet. But I know what you're capable of, and we need someone like you." The street, now calm, held its breath again, because just when the fight seemed over, A whole new chapter was ready to begin. Anya looked at the woman closely, her breath still steady from the brief fight. The crowd had started to thin. People, whispering in awe as they slowly returned to their routines, but a new kind of respect lingered in the air. The woman introduced herself as Priya, part of a local women's safety initiative working in nearby cities. She had heard stories about Anya, though none of them ever had a name until now. Sensei Rajan watched quietly, a knowing look in his eyes. He didn't need to say it. He had always known Anya wasn't meant to live in the background. Her strength wasn't just in her kicks or stances. It was in how she stood tall when no one else would, how she protected without needing to be seen. Anya listened as Priya explained their work, training self-defense, helping victims speak up, creating real change. It was the kind of purpose Anya had once walked away from, thinking she'd had enough of conflict. But now, after what just happened, she realized she hadn't walked away. She'd been preparing. The bookstore, the quiet streets, the soft rhythm of ordinary life. It had helped her heal. But now it was time to step back in, not as a fighter, looking for a battle, but as someone who knew when to stand up and when to stay grounded. Later that evening, Anya sat outside the shop, sipping chai from Mr. Mehra's stall. Ria joined her, nervous at first, but smiling. "You didn't just stop them," she said softly. "You gave us a reason to believe we can stop them too." Anya looked at her, a gentle smile returning to her face. "You already had it in you," she replied. As the sun dipped behind the buildings and the streetlights flickered on, everything felt quieter, but not like before. It was a different kind of calm, the kind that comes after a storm clears. Anya wasn't just the quiet girl anymore. She was the reminder that true strength doesn't need to shout to be heard. And in a town that once underestimated her simplicity, they would never forget who she truly was.